The first Confederate invasion of Union-held territory was not going as planned. After a Union victory at the Battle of South Mountain and a Confederate victory at the Battle of Harper's Ferry, Confederate General Robert E. Lee hoped to make one last stand in the hopes of salvaging his Maryland campaign. With Federal forces closing in from the east, Lee selected strategic ground near Antietam Creek and ordered his army to converge there. This position was a mile east of the town of Sharpsburg. The creek meanders through the hilly but open countryside, good for long-range artillery and moving infantry. The water was deep and crossable at only 3 stone bridges, making it a natural defensible location. On September 15th, Lee positioned his men behind the creek and waited for McClellan, who commanded the Union forces, to arrive. The force under Lee's immediate command consisted of no more than 18,000 men, only a third the size of the Federal Army. The first 2 Union divisions arrived on the afternoon of September 15th, and the bulk of the remainder of the Army late that evening. Although an immediate Union attack on the morning of September 16th would have had an overwhelming advantage in numbers, McClellan's trademark caution and his belief that Lee had as many as 100,000 men at Sharpsburg caused him to delay his attack for a day. This gave the Confederates more time to prepare defensive positions and allowed time for more Confederate troops to arrive.
Immediately!
On the evening of September 16th, McClellan ordered Hooker's First Corps to cross Antietam Creek and probe the enemy position. Its division cautiously attacked Hood's troops near the East Woods as McClellan planned to overwhelm the enemy's left flank. The skirmish near the East Woods signaled McClellan's intentions to Lee, who prepared his defenses accordingly. He shifted men to his left flank and sent urgent messages to his 2 commanders who had not yet arrived on the battlefield: Lafayette McLaws with 2 divisions and A.P. Hill with 1 division. McClellan's plans were ill-coordinated and were executed poorly. The terrain of the battlefield made it difficult for those commanders to monitor events outside of their sectors. Moreover, McClellan's headquarters were more than a mile in the rear. This made it difficult for him to control the separate corps. This lack of coordination and concentration of McClellan's forces almost completely nullified the 2-to-1 advantage the Union enjoyed. It also allowed Lee to shift his defensive forces to meet each offensive. The battle opened at dawn on September 17th with an attack by the Union First Corps under Joseph Hooker. Hooker's objective was the plateau on which sat the Dunker Church. Hooker had approximately 8,600 men. Jackson's defense consisted of the divisions under Alexander Lawton and John R. Jones in line from the West Woods, across the turnpike, and along the southern end of Miller's Cornfield. 4 brigades were held in reserve inside the West Woods. The Union men launched the assault on the Confederate troops. The Union managed to push back the Confederates from Eastwood into Westwood. As the Union advanced, they came within range of Confederate artillery, which opened fire. This caused heavy casualties on both sides and was described by Lee as artillery hell. At this point, Union Major General Ricketts launched an overwhelming assault on the Confederates. They managed to dislodge the Confederates from their position. General Lee noticed that this area of the battlefield was getting close to collapsing. He sent reinforcements under Hood to assist this area. Hood's division of 2,300 men advanced through the West Woods and pushed the Union troops back again. The Texans attacked with particular ferocity because as they were called from their reserve position, they were forced to interrupt the first hot breakfast they had had in days. Hood's men bore the brunt of the fighting, but they were able to prevent the defensive line from crumbling. Hooker's men had also paid heavily, but without achieving their objectives. After 2 hours and 2,500 casualties, they were back where they started. In the cornfield near the woods, there was considerable melee action with rifle butts and bayonets due to the short visibility in the corn. Officers rode about cursing and yelling orders, but no one could hear in the noise. The cornfield was a scene of indescribable destruction. It was estimated that the cornfield changed hands no fewer than 15 times during the morning. Several accounts state that this area saw some of the most brutal fighting in the entire American Civil War. At this point in the battle, McClellan called for Hooker to move his Union troops against the Confederate left. Mansfield was called upon to attack the Confederate center. Mansfield saw that Lee had sent Confederate reinforcements to the areas of fighting in the woods and cornfield. Because of this, he decided to move his troops to assist his Union comrades instead of listening to McClellan's order to attack the center. As his men marched towards his Union comrades, Mansfield was forced to dismount as his horse did not want to cross a fence. As he moves forward, he is fatally shot by an unknown Union soldier who most likely mistook him for an enemy scout. At a similar time, Hooker is shot in the foot on his part of the battlefield, and now the Union has lost 2 key generals. General Williams took command but was given little information. He resumed the Union assault. The Union troops emerged from the woods and make for Dunker Church on the plateau, and the battle raged on. At this point, the Union 2nd Corps under the command of General Sumner arrived. They shortly joined in the fighting. The Confederates held the line and fought off any Union assaults. Lee moved more troops away from his southern positions and into the north to aid in the fighting. The Confederates then launched a counterattack on Union troops in the woods once their reinforcements arrived. They cleared the woods and pushed back the Union troops. The Union 6th Corps under General Franklin arrived and wanted to attack the Confederates. However, Sumner, who had just retreated, wanted to continue the retreat and an argument erupted. The mourning phase ended with casualties on both sides of almost 13,000, including 2 Union Corps commanders. All that had happened by this point was the Cornfield and Woods switching hands on numerous occasions. By midday, the action had shifted to the center of the Confederate line. In the east, the Confederates under General Hill were fighting the Union troops at Bloody Lane. The Union attempted multiple charges at General Hill's position, but each one failed. In this position, the Confederates attempted an attack of their own on the Union. But they are pushed back by the Union troops to their original position. The Confederate troops on the Union right were then commanded to advance to flank the Union. Somehow, orders were misunderstood and the Confederate right started to withdraw. This causes a chain reaction of retreating, and Bloody Lane finally falls to the Union. By this point in the battle, only a tiny amount of Confederate troops were remaining on the south side of the battlefield. Union troops were ordered to march over the Antietam Creek bridge and seize the high ground. Confederates defending the bridge fought hard. Because most of the Confederate troops were sent to the northern part of the battlefield, they were outnumbered and were quickly pushed back. By this point, the fighting in the north had come to a stop. All of Lee's men were either dead, injured, or too tired to continue fighting. However, before the battle had started, Lee had sent a message to nearby troops and a call for aid. The reinforcements were under the command of A.P. Hill, and it was at this time when the first elements of his force started to arrive. Lee's only hope was for the main body of men under A.P. Hill to arrive at the scene.
Immediately.
The Union launched another assault on the Confederates. Despite a good start, Hill's men arrived on the battlefield to assist the struggling Confederates. More and more troops were poured into the battle, and the advantage changed several times. The stalemate continued until darkness fell. By the end of the day, the Union had suffered 12,500 men killed or wounded. The Confederates had suffered 10,500 killed or wounded. There was a huge loss of life with no clear victor. However, the Confederate army had been battered, and Lee's staff urged him to fall back. Lee initially refuses, but eventually is convinced to withdraw. During 12 hours of combat, almost 25,000 Americans were either killed or wounded, making this the bloodiest day in American history.